Hello, my name is Damian, and today I want to talk about a tab. Should you buy one? Well, we'll get to that. Um, there are three things I'm going to go over in this video. The first is what I've learned over the 10 years of having my tab. I bought a 2010 clamshell CS. It's a tab CS in actually it was 2011, the very beginning of 2011, but I've had it for almost 10 years now, and I've taken it all over the place. I've banged it up. It's got scratches in it. I've put it to the test. There's a lot of things I like about it, and there's some things that I don't, and so I'll start by sharing those. Then after that, I'll go to the website, to some of the tab dealer websites, and show what the new tabs today look like and how they've changed, and talk a little bit about what I would buy if I were to buy one today. And finally, I'll show you the design I have sketched up of my concept for my dream tab, which I would like to share with the tab designers in case they are interested in designing a better tab. And hopefully it will give you some ideas of what you should be looking for in future trailers. And with that, let's get into it. Here we are after 10 years of owning our tab trailer. I wanted to give a little discussion talking about the things I like about it and the things I don't like about it. And this was a 2010 tab, and the thing I liked most about it, of course, is the kitchen in the back. I think they couldn't have done a better job with that. I think that is the selling point of this tab for me. There are a few things that they might have been able to do a little bit better. The faucet right here, it's this plastic is really cheap, and you can see it's broken right there, and it leaks, and so that kind of sucks. But otherwise, it's okay. I've had to take this handle off too, and fix the contact switch inside, and so that kind of sucked. And then also underneath, the pump, the water pump in here, it's a good strong pump, but if you leave this filled with water, and if you let it freeze in the wintertime, there's a cap on the back that is a solid plastic cap, and that will crack and break. And I also had some issues with this piece in the past right here where it cracked on the inside, and so I've had to replace this piece. And it was not easy to find, but I did eventually find it. But yeah, so that cap in the back, I've actually since taken it off, and instead of replacing it with the real one, I used kind of a rubber cap that I found at Home Depot. It's like a flexible cap, and I haven't had any issues with it because when things freeze now, it expands, and so I think that's actually a better solution than the original kind of clear plastic cap that they had on before. But anyway, so I wish that they had done this a little bit better, and because when it leaks, it gets wet back here. I usually keep a rag back down here to prevent water from kind of going back in the corners, because it's starting to delaminate a little bit. I don't know if you can see that, but it's coming up underneath. But otherwise, it's not too bad. I haven't had any problems with the stove, although I suspect that some people might have problems with these little prongs right here, the temperature sensor. If these get bumped, I think that might cause the stove to malfunction, and so that might be a problem. But otherwise, I kind of like this setup with the sink and stove right next to each other. The fridge, I only really use it for drinks because it uses a lot of power, and it draws the battery down, and so it'll only last for like one night, and everything after one night will start to warm up and go bad. But I have modified this trailer. I've added an extra output to it, which to use the solar panel, and it's a 150 watt solar panel, which is kind of nice. and it runs everything just fine when it's, at least when it gets sun. And so, it can drive the refrigerator and charge the batteries. And the only when it gets full sun will it drive the amplifier for the speakers, or like um, the CD player. But that was another drawback I found, is the CD player is a car stereo, and it's mounted inside, kind of up here, and up above the cabinet up here, and it's just a regular car stereo. And I wish that they had put something different besides that in there. It's because that's pretty power hungry too. So the only time we can listen to the radio is when we've got full sun on the solar panel. But other than that, because there's so many speakers now that lithium-ion battery speakers that are so much lower power usage that would have been a better solution, I think. But so some other issues with these windows. I really like the design of these windows, but when they pop up, if you happen to be somewhere where it's really sandy, sand gets up in these things, and I don't know if you can see that, but there's a little ratchet inside there, and if it gets too sandy and gritty inside, you can't even see it from here, but there's a little ratchet inside that kind of fits into these little slots, and if there's too much sand and grit in there, it won't go down. It gets stuck like this, and you can't let it go down unless you get a knife from the backside, and so I wish that was a little bit better, a little bit easier to release manually. But otherwise, it's pretty good. I like the design. You just have to get in there and clean it out. What else? The tires. Oh yes, the very first time I got a flat tire, I got out the bar that I used to raise and lower the stands here. Let me get it. I got out this bar right here, to try and undo the tires, but it seems like it would fit, but it doesn't. It actually does not fit in there to turn these nuts. And so we had to leave this thing stranded on the side of the road for a while and drive to town and go pick up the right tools to loosen this. And it's not easy because these holes are pretty skinny, and you have to have just the right socket to fit in there. This kind of a skinny socket, and I can't remember what the size is, but make sure you have one of these before you go camping somewhere. Something to fit that. Let's see what else. That bar that I just put away is meant to raise and lower these support beams. These support jacks I've had problems with. They get dirty. There's a screw. I don't know if you can see the screw in there, right there. But that screw gets dirty, and it makes it really hard to turn this with that ratchet bar that I just had. What I found is that I can use this stuff right here. It's like what's it called? It's a aluminum anti-seize lubricant. It's actually for marine use, I think. I don't know, pick this up on Amazon for a few bucks. It's kind of like a oily, silvery based stuff. It needs to be mixed up. Okay, so the next thing though, the next big problem we've had with this trailer is is overloading it. And so the suspension, or the frame, has actually bent in the past. because there's just too much weight. We overloaded it inside and put too much weight in it, and then we drive down bumpy roads. And so this frame right here, I don't know if you can see it, but it's been bent, and I've kind of bent it back. But that part back there, right there, used to bow way out, and I've had to bend it back in a little bit. But I've also, in order to fix it, in order to make the repair, I added this terrible welding job thing, but I bolted that in place there, and I had to kind of put in a new plate bottom piece down here. But so this frame, I've seen another tab that had been rear-ended, just barely, and it bumped like there was a big. It wasn't one of this style tabs, but it had kind of a bumper, kind of made out of this stuff that was cracked. But other than that little cracked fender thing, the frame had gotten bent, and they ended up totaling the whole tab, like the insurance company, because it was too difficult to repair, or too expensive. And so that's the biggest downfall with this tab, is that the frame is just not built to handle the weight that you would actually load it up with. And so I've seen newer tabs out there that have much better suspension and wheels, and actually I'll try and show a picture of those. But that's what I would recommend. A tab with beefier suspension, and better wheels, and just a better frame is what it needs. I haven't had any problems with the propane. Oh yes, I have had to replace this right here a couple times. You have to. These things tend to leak at this point right here for some reason. So it's just the way they work, the way they're made. This thing, the jack on here, has, if you don't tighten this really hard, it will drop down sometimes in the middle of your drive. It will just slide down, because this is just a pinch thing, a pinch screw, and so it clamps onto it inside. And I've had it drop down on me, and I've actually ended up replacing these wheels, but then it dropped down another time, and so these wheels are kind of bent. I don't know if you can see that, and they need to be replaced again. But that is terrible. That shouldn't happen. So that would be another thing I would change, is how this works. What else? Let's see. Okay, so another thing is the bed is too short. It's not wide enough. Unless you're 4 feet tall, you're only 4 feet tall. This bed is, the way it's built is that you're supposed to sleep side to side right here. But once you put your, I think this is maybe just under 6 feet across, side to side, and so that's how you're supposed to sleep. But as soon as you put your pillow up at that end over there, your feet get bunched up down here, and it's just really not comfortable. And so I ended up making an extension that comes out here, and this is kind of overkill. I could have done this easier with less wood, but it's just an extension of the bed, and I've got a mattress that sits over the top of all of it. And so this is how we do our bed, and we never make the table up inside, because it's pointless. It's nice just to have this inside area for a bed. Anybody who buys a tab for the kitchen inside, I don't know what you're doing. I'm sorry. You should be buying a bigger trailer if you're going to be cooking and stuff inside your trailer. We bought this tab because we like being outside, and we have space. When we're camping, we live outside, and this is what we're where we are. And you know, I don't have the whole camp set up right now. So I ended up adding this. I thought this was kind of a decent way to hold the paper towels. I haven't yet had any issues with these, which is I'm thankful for. If you notice, though, the sun beats down on this wood, on the wood right here, and so the varnish is starting. At first it started turning yellow, like you can see. This is much more yellow than the what's underneath, or the base. This used to match this a lot more closely. But you can see how the varnish is actually, since after it turned yellow, it's starting to flake off now. And so that's something that I'll have to redo at some point. Sometimes these, on really bumpy roads, these will pop open a little bit, and then they'll kind of jiggle up and down. And so these screws have come loose because this right here is just particle board. And I wish that wasn't particle board. I wish all this stuff in here was hard, real wood. That would be one thing that I would change too. That's coming loose, it looks like a little bit, but it's not too bad. What else? On the inside, the I don't know what you call these, the blinds or the curtains or whatever. They still work pretty well. We have to be really gentle with them. This is kind of a weak point. These slides for those, these screws come out. So I've lost this screw right here, and you can see I've replaced it with one that doesn't match exactly. But this wood paneling right here, strips out. It's real thin wood paneling, and so you have to be careful with what you punch into these walls. But one thing I do like about the construction of this, is the outside material. This isn't fiberglass, which you would expect, kind of. I thought that this was fiberglass when I first bought it, but it's actually a layer of aluminum glued to a layer of, I think maybe it is fiberglass underneath, but the aluminum is glued on top. So it's actually a really nice material. It's probably 1/4 of an inch thick, altogether. So it's that the fiberglass helps kind of make it flexible and prevents it from getting bent. Like if you knock it real hard, you don't see dings in it because it's got that fiberglass backing. And so I love this external material. I've done some things to scratch the paint in certain places by leaning things up against it, and someday it'll have to be repainted, but I definitely appreciate that. In fact, it might even look nice without having it painted. It might just look nice just with aluminum, but save that for another experiment, I guess. So going back inside, here's what I installed for the solar panel. It's just a little cheap thing that I got on eBay, and you can see right now the voltage is 12.2. But so I'm running wires through inside the closet, and it goes down kind of along the floor underneath the air conditioner, and it's underneath the bed, so I'm not going to pull up the whole bed, but it comes in over by the power inverter or converter or whatever, down underneath the bench, and then I've got a hole in the wall. I drilled a hole in the wall and put in a plug to the outside so I can plug the solar panels in. So that's kind of how that works. I've replaced all the lights. All the original lights used to be incandescent bulbs. They're all now LEDs, which is a big improvement in how much power we use. I have done some modifications with the batteries inside. So for a while I was using two like heavy duty truck batteries in there, but it started bending out the floor in here, and this was starting to bulge out, and so I had to do a little bit of reconstruction work to to fix that. And so that's how I discovered what these walls were made of. So don't put too heavy batteries in there. It's not really designed for it. But I do have two small, like riding lawnmower batteries in there now, and I can switch one off, or only have one on at a time. So that's what I usually do. In the daytime, I turn them both on so that they can both charge with the solar panel, and then in the evening, as soon as the sun goes down, I switch one off, and I'll that way one will be driving everything, like the fridge and the stove and everything, but and in case it runs out overnight, first thing in the morning when we want to start the stove, there has to be power in the battery to ignite the stove. And so to guarantee that we have a working battery, I leave that one off overnight, and then I flip it on in the morning, when I need it. And so that saved us many times. What else? The vent on the roof I've had to replace. It vibrated, and I think the original one was a white plastic, and for some reason it just got sun rotted and really brittle much faster than these gray ones. So I recommend getting the gray one. And that was actually somewhat difficult to find too, that a fitting for it exactly, but they're out there. What else? There's some weird funky things that happen with the vent fan when the batteries go low. Gosh, it's dirty. I need to kind of clean that off. But when the batteries go low, like depending on how low they are, it will turn off. But once it drops down to a certain point, like 6 volts or less, once it drops really low, then it turns back on. I'm not really sure what's going on. I think that there's probably some electronics in that fan that I don't know. I can make some guesses, but they're just guesses. So, but as soon as it turns on at that low voltage, then it drains the battery completely dead. So that's why our batteries often die in the middle of the night, is because of that fan, And what else? So the other thing too, when we bent the frame because we had the thing overloaded, the heater was sitting kind of above the heater sits right here, and it's in a box that sits upright right here underneath the bench inside, and as the floorboard, this whole thing started bending down right here, like the whole floor went down a couple inches when the frame bent, and it messed up the heater, and I've had to fix the heater fan and stuff, and the whole heater kind of has taken a toll on the heater, and so that frame is really a key. It's a huge problem. I really hope Tab has addressed that as something that is a priority of something that needs to be changed in future models. Underneath the electrical panel down here, there's no way you can see it right now, but there's a little electrical panel, an electrical inverter down there that pretty early on it had a resistor. There was a big heavy duty power resistor. It was about this size, like this big, that was soldered to the board with two wires on one end, and then it would just bounce up and down on bouncy roads, and eventually those solder points broke loose, and I had to take the whole thing apart to figure out what was going on, why it wasn't working, and it wasn't charging the batteries or anything as we were driving, and none of the lights worked for a little while that was happening. Like, just nothing was working, it wasn't charging. and I had to solder it all back together, resolder that thing on there, and it worked. It was cheaper than buying a new one, but don't you know don't buy the same one again. If you're gonna replace that thing, buy a totally different one. I've had to replace the one of the tail lights before. The plastic. Um, this plastic right here. Actually, it was actually this one, but in the sun, especially, it was sitting in the sun in Phoenix for a while, and it caused this plastic to warp out, and it bowed out a little bit, and it made it really loose, and it just fell off on a dirt road one day, so I had to replace that. The oh yeah, the license plate holder is built onto this. It used to have some little weak tabs that the license plate would screw into right here, and those were terrible. They broke off like the first drive we took, maybe a couple drives. So I ended up I ended up having to fix this on here differently, but and that's a problem. If I were to design this again, I would make it just a few feet longer. And I think that a lot of the new ones are a few feet longer, so that the bed could stretch out to this point, and just do away with the table. Just make it a bed in here. And then have the walkway be right in front of the bed. And then, so it would stretch it out. But I would definitely keep the kitchen in the back. That to me is the most important thing. So just stretch it a little bit longer towards the front and keep the kitchen in the back. What I think might be nice, put it on a beefier suspension, beefier frame, beefier suspension, and make it about 2 feet longer. Don't use particle board. And one thing that might be nice too is to make these out of a tempered glass instead of this plastic or acrylic or whatever this is, because it scratches really easily. I don't know if you can see this scratch right here, but I brush up against trees and it gets scratches, and I have to buff those out from time to time. I don't think the fridge is necessary. It's kind of nice, but I would almost rather just have more cabinet space. The air conditioner has been nice to have. The heater is nice to have. And the fan on the roof is definitely nice to have. The air conditioner, the reason that's nice to have is because we use this sometimes for guests to sleep in overnight at our house. So, and in the desert it gets hot and we need the air conditioner, so it's nice to have that to turn on for our guests. All right, that was my tab. Now I'd like to talk about the tabs that are available or that are on the market today. If you go online, there's a number of dealers that have a lot of information about them available, but there are essentially two sources. There's a source. There must be a company that makes, some manufacturer in Germany, and then there's another manufacturer somewhere in America, it looks like. This here is the German website, and these are the tabs that are available in Germany. If you might not be able to see this from this picture that you're looking at here, but the tongues, the frames of all these tabs are still the same as the one that I just showed you. That was on my tab. They're flimsy, they're light and weak. I would not recommend these tabs. So if you live in Europe, sorry, that kind of sucks. And it's not to say that they still don't make a great product, but another thing I noticed though is that the German tabs, it looks like they have done away with the clamshell design. They're all enclosed trailers now. They do have a tab 400, which is the longer one. There's an extended one, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So let's look at the American versions. This here is the 2020 version of the clamshell tab. I'm only going to talk about the clamshells today because that's really what this video is about, the clamshells, which are the ones with the tails that open, you know, the kitchen in the rear. So this is the kitchen on the 2020 version. You can see that it still has a fridge. They added a TV, although I'm sure that that's optional. And it's pretty much the same as my tab. It looks like they have improved the sink, or the faucet, I should say. But I think it's the same stove sink combination. So it's not much different there, which is fine. You know, it's pretty good. Now going to the new model, the 2021 model, the kitchen is quite different. It looks like they are now adding a microwave, which is, in my opinion, totally unnecessary, and I would not want that. I hope that is an option, and I hope that you can choose to not include the microwave, because what do you need a microwave for when you're camping? I mean, even if it is run off a battery, it would deplete your battery in like 10 minutes. You know, it's just, you shouldn't have a microwave in your tab. Your counter space, or your cabinet space, is so precious that you don't want to waste it on a microwave. Also, I tend to think that these cabinets look a little bit, I don't know, lower quality than the 2020 version, but that you decide. What I would say though is I noticed that there's a better countertop, and actually let's go back to the other one real quick. They have improved the countertop over the years. It's more of a composite or something. I'm not sure what it's made out of, but it's not going to delaminate, which is a big plus. So that's something that's changed over the years. The sink looks like it's an improvement. I actually do think that the space between the sink and the stove here might be to some advantage. One thing I will say about the stove, this little stove in the past, is it's really hard to fit two pans on there. You know, you can fit one pan and a very small pan, but usually we have one big pan and turn both burners on is what we usually do. You know, for making pancakes or anything really. We use both burners for one pan on both burners is what we usually do. So if you need to have two pans going, you kind of need a bigger stove, and it doesn't look like this version solves that. So I just assume going back to the single unit system, but whatever, doesn't matter. It's your choice on that. It's probably more than I needed to say there. Here is the overhead, or like the floor plan of the Tab CS. This is the 2021 version, and I believe this bathroom is optional, but maybe not. I think maybe this might be standard now. But what I wanted to show you though is that this doesn't really give you the flexibility of extending the bed lengthwise, except for maybe right here. But then you both two people would have to kind of squeeze in here. You're still expected to sleep sideways on this, and I still argue that that's just not long enough. I mean, if for one person, if you sleep diagonally, that is okay, but for two people, it's just not quite long enough. So that brings us to the next option. If you are considering buying a tab right now, I guess we'll get there in a second. Tab also does make a tag. It's just like tab, but it's called tag, and they're a little bit shorter, and they're essentially the same thing. Actually, let's see if I can get. This is kind of what they look like. Um, the and the on the inside it's just a bed, and I'm not entirely sure if what the bed length is. You should probably measure it before jumping into one of these, but I think this might be a viable option. I think it's less expensive, and I would definitely consider looking into these. And there's also little guy trailers and a number of options that are available in that realm. But but so why not go for a tag then? Why would you opt for a tab? Because it looks like these tags have air conditioners right here. They have, a ceiling vent. They do even have a little heater, I believe, a little electric heater. I don't think they have propane heaters. But what I find strange though is that they're putting microwaves in these tags. Like, why? Why bother with a microwave? Here's let's see, where was it? Somewhere in here there's a picture. Oh yeah, you can see the microwave. To me, that is just a waste of space. But to each his own. Anyway, so going back to the tab, there's a little bit more headroom, so you can stand up in a tab, and you can set up a table if you really wanted to. But like I said, I think the bed keeping it as a bed makes the most sense. But going to the next option here, the Tab 400, is something that has been developed over in more recent years. And they've extended the length of it by about 3 feet, I believe. And so you can see though that the back end is at a steeper, I guess a less steep angle than the Tab CS. The Tab CS kind of cuts down and stops right about here. And so the fact that this is at more of a slant, the rear end, makes it more difficult, I think, for them to try and fit a kitchen in the back. So that is why all of the Tab 400s right now are fully enclosed. I mean, everything's on the inside. There's no kitchen. There's no clamshell option for the 400s. But they do have off-road versions, versions with a better frame, which is something else I forgot to talk about. On all of these, all of the American ones, you can't really see from these photos. Let me close this, but it looks like they've all upgraded to a heavier duty frame. And this is just the regular frame option, and then there's the Boondock version, which is the kind of the beefier wheels and beefier suspension, and that is what I would definitely go with, is the Boondock versions. So now going back to the Tab 400, what I would do, well, let's take a look at this first real quick. Notice that right here on this one, this is probably an aftermarket bike rack, but I think that is a brilliant addition. And I think on this picture here, this is a different one. This one might come with tab. It looks like it's kind of designed for this frame. So I have not found these I have not found a source for these yet personally, but I intend to kind of look into this myself, because there are many times when I've wanted to bring bikes, and I have brought bikes, but I have a front mount bike rack that goes on the hood of my trunk, my car, but I don't really like how that attaches very well. I'd much rather have this system. So if you are an avid biker, look into this. Anyway, so the Tab 400, though, the longer version, has this on one side, which indicates that it has a built-in water tank, which is nice. So it probably holds quite a bit more water than the tab CS, the clamshell. So this is a nice feature. It also has an attachment for an exterior shower head, which is something that I mentioned in my video would be nice. So thinking about all that, I decided to piece together what I thought would be an ideal tab. And so this is where the third part of this video comes in, where I show you the sketch that I did of my ideal tab. So what I've done here is I've taken a picture from the website of the Tab 400, which you can see right here, and this is the Boondock version, which you can kind of see behind. You can see the logo for here, but this is I just clipped out the image and then imported that image into SketchUp and then started drawing on top of it. And so here, this is what I think could be done. You know, relatively, well, I don't know how easy, but you know, I think this could reasonably be done. I believe it could still be turned into a clamshell by, you know, the typical clamshell usually opens up higher, but I think that if we lower, if we scoot this counter space out right here, you know, there wouldn't be a lot of room for cabinets in the kitchen area from the back underneath the clamshell. But here, let me change to a different angle and I'll come back. So this is kind of, let's go to one more here. So this is kind of my concept, where we'd have the sink over here, the stove right here, have kind of a cubby hole for some things in your kitchen area over here. Possibly underneath this, like the center piece, might be, you could possibly make that lift up and have some more storage space underneath it. You know, that's not necessary, but it might be an idea. The idea of this this board right here is it's kind of a shelf in this position, but it could also be flipped up and close this off. But it's, in my opinion, it's nice to have a or like a pass-through, I guess is what that would be called. But it would also be nice to be able to close that up. So I thought I kind of designed this with the intention where this is on a hinge and you can just flip it up. Furthermore, I thought that it would be nice to have more cabinet space out here on the side, which would be, you know, protected with this cover right here would fold down and protect this while you're driving, but it would fold up, and I didn't really bother with putting a hinge here, but you can imagine that this is a collapsing hinge that supports it. And then similarly, there'd be one over here on this hatch that would prevent it from folding down even further. But the idea is that each of these would be extra counter space, because let's face it, that's one thing that you never have enough of when you're camping is table and counter space. So, and I thought that, you know, this area here doesn't have to look exactly like this. This could be customized by Tab however they want, but you know, they could fit in an optional fridge right here. And I was kind of thinking that on the back side, the driver's side of the Tab, would be just open space where you could throw in your ice chest and your chairs or whatever, and so it would be fairly deep of just open space for you to throw stuff in. I thought that this cavity right here would be, here, let me actually, just a sec, let me just scoot this around a little bit. This cavity in this right here would just be well, let me just change the scene to this. So I'm flattening this again. So this cavity would be accessible on the inside through cabinet doors right here, but you could also have an air conditioner down there. You can have your electrical panel, your heater, and maybe a stereo. I don't know what else you might want, but there's plenty of room under there for all kinds of stuff. I thought that on the driver side of the tab, which it's not really pictured here. I didn't go into the details of the drawing of how to picture it, but I thought it would be nice to have a bathroom. Oh man, I spelled bathroom wrong. Let me fix that. There we go. Okay. And so, yeah, and it would be the same as what is in the existing clamshell right now, the existing tab. So, it would be a wet bath with a little shower and a little sink, and that could be optional, I suppose, but I think it would be nice to have, because there are plenty of times when, especially the ladies, like to have a place to sit. So this over here would be just a bench. This is kind of a cushion, and that you can have storage space under here, the same as normal. But one difference is that the bed has been raised in this idea, this concept, but it is plenty long. It is now long enough to have a pillow up here, and not, and your feet can. If you're super tall, I suppose your feet can hang off, but you're not getting scrunched up, and I think that is a huge difference. But I think it is plenty tall. It's I think the length of a typical like queen size bed now, or typical bed. And I thought it would be nice also to put some cabinets up here on. Let's go to a different angle so you can see it. Oops, let's go to this one. So have some shelves up here at the top, kind of along the top, up above, that are maybe just maybe a foot deep or so, for people to put their things in it, their nighttime stuff in. You can put lights up there or whatever. I don't know. This is all design stuff for tab to figure out. But I think that this concept is very would be a huge improvement to the existing tabs. And I think I'm not sure exactly where the Tab 400s currently put their water tank, but I would suspect that in a design like this, you could fit a 200-gallon water tank right in between the wheel wells. Let me go back here. You can't really see it, but this box right here kind of outlines where that tank would fit. And I don't think you need 200 gallons, but that's the area that I was roughly calculating. So, and that would be awesome if you could fit 200 gallons into a tab. You could take showers and have all you need for a week, or for I don't know how long. Normally we camp. Usually when we camp, we fill up the 5-gallon tank that's in the back, and we usually bring maybe 3 or 4 extra 3 gallons, so that's 12 or 15 gallons, something like that extra. So it's not much that we go through in a few days. But yeah, that's it. Oh, let's see. Up here, we've also got a window for stargazing. You can see how she might look out the window, and ideally that would open up, maybe pop out either this way or this way. And what else? On the back side, there would be a hot water heater, and that shower handle that I showed you on the Tab 400. That same thing would be out there on the back, on the driver's side. Yeah, and I think that covers it. That is what I would like to see in a tab. And so if the tab designers have questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them. And if there's anything else that you would like to see in a tab, please leave comments below. Share your ideas. Okay, so that brings us back to the original question, should you buy a tab or a tag? I think there are a couple things to consider. First of all, are you single? If you are, then it probably really doesn't matter what you buy. You know, if you like the tab for the style, then buy a tab. You know, if you know you're going to be single, it doesn't really matter. There's plenty of space in the tab or a tag for you and your things. But if you are in a relationship with somebody or intend to start a relationship with somebody, then there's a few more things that you need to consider, I think. You know, obviously if you're watching this video, you like the style of the tab, and I get it, I do too. And so that wins a lot of points. But there's a balance between style and practicality. And so the next thing to consider, I guess, is whether or not you want to live inside your tab. You know, do you want the kitchen inside or not? If you want the kitchen inside, you are somewhat committing to spending more time inside your trailer when you're camping. And I think that if that's the case, the tab is probably not the right choice for you. I think you should probably be getting something or looking at something a little bigger. If you do want a clamshell, you want your kitchen outside, then the next thing to consider is whether or not you want a bathroom inside. If you don't care about a bathroom, then I highly recommend looking at a tag or a little guy trailer. But if you really want that bathroom, then a tab is your only choice. So that's pretty much what it comes down to. A tab CS, excuse me. I suppose if you would prefer to wait for a tab to come along with a longer bed, I don't blame you. But I would suggest pushing the tab designers to do that, and share my video with them on the tab forum and anywhere else that you come in contact with tab designers or the tab community. And I'll put a link to the tab forum in the comments below. But yeah, that's my sense on whether or not you should buy a tab. Yeah, so that's about it. Thanks for watching and have a good day. I have two YouTube channels, both of which contain essentially the same content. One contains longer versions of my videos, the other contains shorter 1-minute versions. So if you'd prefer to subscribe to the channel with the shorter 1-minute versions, I'll include a link to that in the description below. You should also be able to click on the short version of this video in the box that pops up right about here. And that's it. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, and see you next time.